This is the instructional video for solving equations test review. So your first equation, you want to start out with your parentheses and do your distributive property. So we'll distribute our 2. So 5 times 2 would give me 10. Keep your x. 2 times 2 would give me positive 4. And then bring down your other part of your equation. Once you get to this point, you want to look at your variable terms. They're both the same, and since they are both the same, and then your constants are different, that lets you know that you have a no solution equation. So this one is no solution. With this problem, we do not have any parentheses, so we will start by combining like terms. We have a 12x and a negative 2x over on the left-hand side of the equal sign. 12 minus 2 would give me 10. Keep your x. Bring down your other terms that you've not used. You can look at your variable terms at this point, the 10x and the negative x, and you know you have a one solution equation. So you know you're going to need to solve all the way down to figure out what x equals. So at this point, I do want to get my x's to one side of the equal sign and my numbers without variables to the other side. So bring your line down. If I move the negative x to the left-hand side, the opposite would be to add x to both sides of the equal sign. That's the same as adding 1x. These will cancel. 10x plus 1x will be 11x. We're going to bring down our other terms that we've not used. I am now ready to move the 35 to the other side of the equal sign, so I do that by using an inverse operation, so negative 35 to both sides. Those cancel. 11x equals negative 33, and then your final step is to divide by 11, so x equals negative 3. Here we have a multi-step equation. You can tell by looking at your variable terms that this is a one solution equation. So we know we have one solution. We need to solve for the x. So I'm going to do that by going ahead and bring your line down. And there's a couple of ways you can do this. You can move more than one term at the same time. You just have to be careful. I'm actually going to move the 3x to the right-hand side. That way I'm not dealing with as many negative issues. So the opposite of a positive 3x is a negative 3x. And then I'm going to take and move this positive 8 to the other side of the equal sign. So the opposite of a positive 8 is a negative 8. So I'm doing minus 8 to both sides. These 8s are going to cancel. So over here, we have 8 minus 3. That's going to give me 5. We're going to keep that x. We have our equal sign here. We have a negative 2 minus 8. Negative 2 minus 8 is a negative 10. Divide both sides by a positive 5. And x would equal negative 2. With this equation, we do have parentheses, so we do need to do our distributive property. So remember, when you have a negative in front of a set of parentheses, that's the same as -1 that we are going to distribute to that parentheses set. So I'm going to have my 2x. A -1 times a -5 is going to give me +5. Keep the x. -1 times a -5 is a +5. Again, we're going to distribute a -1 to the parentheses set. So -1 times -7 is +7. Keep the x. -1 times -10 is +10, and bring down your -4. At this point, we want to combine like terms. So I have some variable terms that are alike. 2x plus 5x would give me 7x, plus we still have our 5. Over on the right-hand side, we have constants that we can combine that are like terms. So we're going to keep that 7x. And we have 10x minus 4, which would give me a +6x. At this point, you will look at your variable terms. And since they are the same, you know that your equation is either going to be a no solution equation or infinite solution. When I look at my constants, +5 and +6, since they are different, I know that this is a no solution equation. With this equation, we do have distributive property involved since there are parentheses, so we want to start out by distributing our +8. 8 times 2 is 16. We're going to keep the x. 8 times -4 would be a -32. Bring down your equal sign. We're going to distribute -4 to everything in the parentheses set. -4 times -4 is a +16. Keep the x. And -4 times a +8 is a -32. So when you look at your variable terms, you have a +16x and a +16x. At that point, you know you either have a no solution or an infinite solution equation. Then when you look at your constants, you have a -32 and a -32. This lets you know that you have an infinite solution equation. They are exactly the same on both sides, so it means infinite solution. Okay, so we need to do our distributive property on this problem since we do have parentheses. So I'm going to distribute the 5 to everything in the parentheses set, which will give me a -5x and a -15. Bring down our other number of -7 and our equal sign. We need to distribute the 5 to everything in the parentheses set. 5 times -x would be -5x. 5 times -5 would be -25 plus the 3. At this point, we do want to combine our like terms. So I have some constants over on the left-hand side that are alike. My -5x, I'm going to leave that. And we have -15 -15 minus 7, which is a -22. Bring down our equal sign. Over on the right-hand side, we need to combine like terms also. We have a -5x. And then -25 plus 3 is going to give me a -22. Again, when I look at this, my variable terms are the same, and my constant terms are the same. So that lets me know that I have an infinitely many solutions equation. We are going to start with distributive properties since we do have parentheses. So distribute the 3. 3 times 2 would give me 6. Keep the x. 3 times 2 is 6, so plus 6. Bring down the terms you did not use. At this point, we do want to combine like terms. We have a +6x minus an x. That x represents 1. 6 minus 1 would give me 5x. You have some constants that are the same, so you have a +6 and a -2. 6 minus 2 would be +4. You know at this point you have a one solution equation because it's a two-step equation. So at this point, I want to isolate the variable by moving the +4 over to the right-hand side across the equal sign. I would subtract 4 from both sides. That's going to leave me with 5x, the equal sign, and 39 minus 4 would be 35. Now to get my variable by itself, I want to divide both sides by 5, and x would be 7. Your next problem has parentheses in it again, so you are going to have to do your distributive property when you start off. -5 times -5 is a positive 25. We're going to keep our x. -5 times -3 is a positive 15. And I'm going to go ahead over here on this right-hand side and combine like terms. So I have a 7x and a positive 24. At this point, I can tell by looking at the variable terms of 25x and 7x that I am going to have a one-solution equation. So I need to be able to figure out what x equals. Go ahead and bring your line down. I want to move my variable terms and get them on the same side, so I'm going to subtract 7x on both sides. 25 minus 7 would give me 18x. I still have my positive 15, I have my equal sign, and a positive 24. I need to get the variable term isolated, so I'm going to move the 15 across the equal sign. So that's doing the opposite or inverse operation and subtract 15 on both sides. 18x would equal 9. Now, at this point, sometimes we make a mistake as students and we think we're going to do 9 divided by 18, but you're not. You always divide by what is by the variable, and since 18 is what is attached to our variable, we need to divide both sides by 18. So 9 divided by 18, you have an option. You can reduce the fraction and just leave it as the fraction 1/2, or if you divide and use your calculator, you will end up with 0.5. Either answer would be accurate. With your next problem, you are going to need to start out with distributive property since you have a set of parentheses involved. So -5 times -x is a positive 5x. -5 times a positive 1 is a -5. And then bring down the terms you've not used. At this point, you do want to combine like terms. A positive 5x and a -3x. 5 minus 3 is 2x. I also have a -5 constant and a -1. -5 minus 1 would be -6. We have our equal sign and our -12. We can tell immediately we have a one-solution equation since it's a two-step equation. So I'm going to go ahead and bring my line down and start to isolate my variable by using my inverse operation to move -6 to the other side of the equal sign. We're going to add 6 to both sides. These cancel, leaving me with 2x equals -6. And then to get the x by itself, instead of multiplying, you're going to do the opposite and divide both sides by 2. So x does equal -3. With this problem, we do have parentheses, so we are going to need to start with distributive property. We know that since we have a negative in front of this set of parentheses, that's the same as having a -1. So we will distribute the -1. -1 times a positive 4 would be a -4x. -1 times -7 would be positive 7. Then we want to distribute our -2 to the parentheses set on the right-hand side. -2 times a positive 2 is a -4. Keep your x. -2 times -3 is a positive 6. Once you get to this point in your equation, you want to look at your variable terms. They both are -4x, so that lets you know you're either going to have a no solution equation or an infinite solution equation. So then you want to look at your constant terms. Since our constant terms are different, one of them is 7 and one of them is 6, we know that this is a no solution equation. With your next problem, we again have parentheses, so we do have to do our distributive property. So we're going to start by distributing this negative 1/2. So a negative times a positive, that's going to give me a negative. Half of 10 is 5, so that's negative 5x. My negative times my positive would again give me a negative, and half of 2 is going to be 1. Bring down my negative 10 and my equal sign. Distribute the 5 on the other side of the equal sign. 5 times negative x is negative 5x. 5 times negative 1 is negative 5. Bring down my negative 6. At this point, I do need to combine like terms. So I'm going to keep my negative 5x, but I'm going to combine the constants of negative 1 minus 10, which would give me a negative 11. On the right-hand side, we're going to keep our negative 5x, but we're going to again combine the constants. Negative 5 minus 6 is negative 11. When I look at my variable terms, they are the same. So I know I'm either infinite or no solution. When I look at my constants, they're both negative 11. So again, they are the same. So this lets me know I have infinitely many solutions for this equation. On this problem, you do have parentheses, so you do want to start with your parentheses doing distributive property. So 4 times negative 2 would be negative 8x. 4 times 5 would be positive 20. On the front, do not forget to bring down your positive 3. We're going to bring down our equal sign, our negative 6x, and our 3. We're also going to look at combining like terms. So we have a positive 3 and a positive 20. So that would give me positive 23. So that's going to give me negative 8x plus 23 equals negative 6x plus 3. At this point, we know that we have one solution since the variable terms are different. So we need to go ahead and solve for that x. Whoops. So I'm going to move my negative 6 over the equal sign. So the opposite of negative 6 is positive 6x. Negative 8 plus 6 would give me a negative 2. Keep your x. Bring down my negative 23, my equal sign, and my positive 3. I am now to a two-step equation, so I need to move the negative 23 using inverse operations across that equal sign. The opposite or inverse operation of positive 23 is negative 23. So you do that on both sides of the equal sign. That's going to leave me with negative 2x equals a negative 20. And then my final step is to divide both sides by negative 2. So x would equal positive 10. With this problem, we're immediately going to start by looking at our variable terms. Since we have a variable term of 15x and a variable term of 10x, those are not the same. So I know I have a one solution equation, which lets me know I have to solve for the x. So I should get x equals in my answer here. So we're going to go ahead and start using our inverse operations to isolate our variable. So I'm going to move the positive 10x across the equal sign. So we would do negative 10x to both sides. 15 minus 10 will give me 5. Keep your x. I still have my positive 3, my equal sign, and I have a positive 3 on the right-hand side. I need to get the variable term isolated, so I'm going to move the positive 3 across the equal sign by doing minus 3 to both sides. Those cancel, leaving me with 5x equals 0. And then if I divide both sides by 5, x is 0. This problem, you do have parentheses, so you are using your distributive property. Remember, a negative being distributed is the same as negative 1. So we're going to distribute that. Negative 1 times a negative x would be a positive x. Negative 1 times a positive 1 is negative 1. Then we have x minus 1 on the other side. Notice your variable terms are identical. You have x and an x. And your constants are identical, a negative 1 and a negative 1. So that lets you know that you have infinitely many solutions. For this equation, we do have parentheses, so we want to start out using our distributive property. 8 times 5 would give me 40. Keep your x. 8 times negative 5 is negative 40. Then you want to distribute the positive 10 to the parentheses set on the right-hand side. 10 times 4 is 40. Keep your x. And 10 times negative 4 is negative 40. As we've mentioned before, you want to pay attention to your variable terms. They are identical. So that means either infinitely many solutions or no solution. So then we're going to look at our constants. They are the same. So that means we have infinitely many solutions. So when you see this answer, sometimes you'll see infinite solutions, sometimes infinitely many solutions, and often IMS. With this problem, we start with our parentheses using distributive property. 7 times 2 would be 14. Keep your x. 7 times negative 4 would be negative 28. Use your distributive property on the right-hand side. 7 times 3 is 21. Keep the x. 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. Then bring down your negative 8. At this point, you do want to combine like terms over on the right-hand side. So we're going to combine our negative 6 and our negative 8. So that's going to leave me with a negative 14. I'm going to bring down our other terms. We can tell by looking at our variable terms here, since they're different, I am going to have one solution. Sorry. So we want to solve for that variable. So we're going to move, I'm going to move my 14 over. So negative 14x, negative 14x. So 21 minus 14 would give me 7x. I need to also move the negative 14 that is on the right-hand side over. So I would add 14 to both sides. Negative 28 plus 14 would give me a negative 14. And then we would divide both sides by 7. And so then our answer would be x equals negative 2. As I start this equation, I see that I have parentheses, so I know I have to use distributive property. We have a negative sign in front of our parentheses, so that means when we distribute that negative sign, we will be distributing actually a negative 1. So the left-hand side of our problem is going to stay the same, but then to the right-hand side, when I do distributing, I have negative 1 times x, which would be negative x, and negative 1 times negative 4 is a positive 4. Look at your variable terms, they're both negative x. Look at your constants, they are both positive 5. And so we know since everything is identical, this is infinite solutions. Also called IMS, for infinitely many solutions. With this problem, we do not have any distributive property to take care of, so we just look at our variable terms. We have a negative 10 and a negative 8, so since those are different, I know we have a one solution graph. So that means I should end up with a x equals answer. So we are ready to start moving across the equal sign using inverse operations. If I move the negative 8, the opposite of a negative 8 is a positive 8. We're going to keep that x. Add 8 to both sides. That would cancel. And then the opposite of the negative 5, to get it to the other side of the equal sign, I would add 5 to both sides. So plus 5 here, plus 5. These would cancel. Negative 10 plus 8 would be a negative 2x. Keep my equal sign. A positive 11 plus 5 would be 16. And then divide both sides by negative 2. And x would equal negative 8. We have parentheses in this problem, so we do have to start with distributive property. So I'm going to be distributing the 4 to start with. My 7 is going to stay. Then when I distribute the 4, that gives me 4 times negative x, a negative 4x. 4 times 9 is a positive 36. Keep my equal sign. We're keeping our 2x. And we need to distribute negative 6 because you pick up the sign in front of the number when you do your distributing. Negative 6 times x is negative 6x. Negative 6 times a negative 7 is a positive 42. At this point, I do need to combine like terms. So I have a positive 7 and a positive 36. So when I put those together, that's going to give me a positive 43. And I'm going to go ahead and bring down my negative 4x. Over on the right-hand side, I'm going to combine my variable terms of 2x minus 6x, and that's going to give me negative 4x plus 42. So at this point, I want to look at my variable terms. They are both negative 4x, so I know I either have a no solution or an infinitely many solutions equation. Look at your constant terms. One of them is 43, the other is 42. Since they are not the same, that lets you know this is a no solution equation.